fascinating and ancient royal ritual was carried out recently in the Central African nation of Cameroon. The festival dates back to the year 1384, and it's a sort of report card for the king of the Bamoun people. The ruler is put on a public trial. Lawyers present opinions of his leadership, some serious and some not, as the crowd loves a bit of entertainment. And depending on how the people's judgment goes, the Bamoun king could be fined, removed from office, or have his leadership reinforced with renewed support from the people. A businessman who traveled here from Britain said there was a lot of humor and a lot of severe judgment of the king, but that overall it demonstrated the people's love for him. His position was approved, by the way. The ceremony is followed by celebrations, and while it might not carry the same legal weight as the practice did back in the 14th century, it gives the Bamoun people the chance to learn about their culture, connect with their traditions, and pass them on to their children. Hello and happy Thursday. I'm Azuz for the World from A to Z. We thank you for spending some time with us today. The Middle East and the world as a whole is waiting to see what happens next in the war-torn nation of Syria. We reported earlier this week how a rebel group swept through the country in a matter of weeks, gaining control of city after city as the regime of President Bashar al-Assad quickly crumbled. He's since fled the country and taken refuge in the Russian capital, Moscow. Russia and Iran were two of his major allies. Many Syrians have been celebrating. The former leader's critics say he was brutal. His forces violently attacked government protesters back in 2011, which led to the nation's civil war. The United Nations accused him of using chemical weapons against his people, which the international community considers illegal. And even as much of the fighting in the war subsided in recent years, the UN said 90% of Syrians lived in poverty, while Assad lived in this palace, a massive place where rebels now roam the halls. Its towering ceilings, chandeliers, and marble illustrate the opulence of its former inhabitants. Their warehouse, filled with luxury sports cars and classic Cadillacs, shows how the Assad family liked to travel. They ruled Syria for more than 50 years. Now that the government is gone, the United States has launched dozens of airstrikes targeting members of the Islamic State terrorist group. And the nation of Israel has been targeting weapons and equipment previously used by the Syrian military. Why?
In the dead of night, Syrian naval ships going up in flames. At daybreak, this is all that remains of the Syrian fleet at Latakia after Israel launched a wave of strikes intended to destroy the strategic arsenal of the newly deposed regime of Bashar al-Assad. Israeli missile ships fired the fatal blow at Latakia. Many more were carried out by Israeli jets. Altogether, nearly 500 strikes since the fall of Assad's regime. The Israeli Prime Minister says the strikes are aimed at preventing the Assad regime's strategic and long-range weapons from falling into the hands of radical Islamists. Syria's rebel leader, Ahmed al-Shara, better known by his moniker Abu Muhammad al-Jalani, previously led Syria's al-Qaeda affiliate. And while he has struck a more moderate tone, there is still considerable uncertainty about what this new Syria will look like. The Israeli military estimates that the operation has destroyed 70 to 80% of Syria's strategic weapons, including jets and attack helicopters, cruise and ballistic missiles, as well as air defense systems. It also struck Syria's chemical weapons depots.
The strategy now behind the strikes is about taking off any future potential threats.
Israel was criticized for sending ground troops into Syria. After Syrian forces left, Israeli troops captured a decades-old buffer zone that once separated them from the Syrian military. Israel also captured strategic areas outside that buffer zone, but says its actions in Syria are temporary.
Word and knowledge. Which of these inventors developed the electric telegraph in the 1830s? Samuel Morse, Michael Faraday, Thomas Edison, George Westinghouse. The date here is key. Telegraph patents in the 1830s went to William Cook, Charles Wheatstone, and Samuel Morse.
On this date in On December 12th in the year 2000, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a decision that finalized an election. The 2000 presidential vote was so close in the Electoral College that the race came down to the state of Florida. Results there were so close that they triggered a recount, and it dragged on for weeks. When the Supreme Court voted 5-4 to stop that recount, Republican presidential nominee George W. Bush was still leading Democratic presidential nominee Al Gore, so Bush received the Florida votes and the election win. Today is Independence Day for the East African nation of Kenya. It was on this date in 1963 that the country declared its independence from the United Kingdom. And this was the date in 1901 that the first transatlantic radio signal was sent and received. The message itself wasn't much, it was just the letter S in Morse code. But the fact that those 3 dots were tapped in England and picked up in Newfoundland, Canada made the transmission historic, considered the greatest accomplishment of Italian inventor Guglielmo Marconi.
Where in the world? A famous author once called this the loveliest fleet of islands that lies anchored in any ocean. It used to be known as the Sandwich Islands, but the archipelago achieved American statehood in 1959. This is Hawaii, and the author who admired its beauty is Mark Twain.
This is Hanapepe Salt Patch. Here, 22 native Hawaiian families are committed to making paiakai, which is Hawaiian for salt. But getting from this to this is a process.
The first stage is cleaning the area, of course.
Next, salt harvesters form beds called punas, shaping them out of dark, wet clay. After that,
we clean out our wells and we take our water from our wells and we bring it into our beds where the process starts.
Over time, the water evaporates and salt crystallizes and is left at the bottom. 3 months later,
we have a thick layer of salt crystals.
The salt harvested here is used for cooking, but is also part of rituals and believed to have healing power. Since it is considered sacred, the salt that's gathered is only traded or given away. According to traditional beliefs, it should never be sold.
When my dad told me it's our responsibility to give it away, those were such powerful words in my soul.
Hanapepe is one of the last remaining traditional salt patches in Hawaii. Over the past decade, it has been under threat due to development, sand erosion from vehicle traffic, and littering. And the amount of salt harvested annually has evaporated, you might say. 50 years ago, families were giving it away in 5-gallon buckets. Now the salt is handed out in sandwich bags, leaving families searching for solutions to preserve the salt-making practice.
It makes the Kapunas very proud to see us keeping the traditions alive.
Matamidi, and I think I pronounced that correctly, is a suburb of St. Paul, Minnesota, and it's where Miss Ward's and Mr. Collins' classes are watching today at Matamidi Middle School. Great to see y'all in the land of 10,000 lakes. We'll move west to visit Big Sky Country. Mr. Stenson's class is in Butte, Montana, home of the Bulldogs at Butte High School. And from Texas, the Lone Star State, a warm welcome to the Rams in Coach Echevarria's class. Del Rio High School is in the city of Del Rio. In the one of these things is not like the others category, this looks like a pretty unremarkable scene of a dude walking some dogs until you see what's lagging behind in the sweater. It's a pig, one of my favorite dog breeds, and he's being used to help train dogs in the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro. His name is Pablo. His owner, like the dog whisperer, works with dogs that have behavioral issues. After adopting Pablo, though, the trainer found the pig's presence had a calming effect on the troubled dogs. And taking all of these animals out and about has turned the owner and the pig into internet and city celebrities around Rio. It's no poor sign when a poor sign finds time, hamming up for canines at train time, game time, and someone needs a pig to pork belly up and help snout, hot dog and whole hog on pig's feet when pigging out. In the pen or dog park, on or off the leashes, you can slop till you drop with a partner that's carnitas. It's bringing home the bacon when you're going to the dogs. It's doggone good training when you've got a boss hog. That cooks up another edition of The World from A to Z. Thank you for watching. You mean the world to me. I'm Carl Azuz.